Hi, I'm Lisa Andria, Transformation Life Coach. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast, where guests share their inspiring stories of leaping out of their comfort zone with confidence and power and into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's listen to their life-changing stories so that we can all learn how to gain the courage to take a leap of faith into a life that we love so that we can all be Ladies Who Leap. Let's get started. Hi, thanks for tuning in to Ladies Who Leap podcast. Today, I'm really excited to talk to Georgi Enthoven. Georgi Enthoven is a globally recognized speaker, advisor, and debut author of Work That's Worth It, The Ambitious Professional's Guide for a High-Impact, High-Reward Career. Written for purpose-driven professionals aged 25 to 35, her book is a roadmap for aligning work with personal values and creating careers that merge environmental and social impact with professional growth. What a great book and what a great focus. A graduate of UC Berkeley and Harvard Business School with an MBA, Georgi's mission is to help the next generation transform their careers into sources of fulfillment, connection, and positive change. With experience spanning global entrepreneurship, education, and impact-focused initiatives, Georgi offers fresh, actionable insights for anyone ready to build a career that truly matters. Welcome, Georgi.
Oh, thank you for having me and for that lovely introduction.
I really love your focus. 25 to 35-year-olds, helping them align their work with personal values. Where did this desire to help younger up-and-coming professionals direct their career to social impact while still having the income to sustain themselves? Where did this all come from? And I'd love to start kind of even when you were a child. Was it something that happened when you were young that directed?
Well, I do. I love youth and everything, all the potential that it holds. And so the focus of the book being targeted at younger people, it's a message that could be for anybody, and there are tools in there that could be for anybody. But the focus is because young people, I believe that this younger generation is going to do for sustainability and the planet what the millennials did for mental health. So they really care about the environment. They are stressed about the direction that we're heading and probably feel resentful and overwhelmed by the burden that their generation is going to have to carry. And so I believe that they're the easiest to motivate to make choices that are that include alignment with sustainability and humanity. So I think that is the main reason that I am connected to that younger generation. Also, it was at that time when I graduated for college that I felt really lost, going from learning to earning and feeling like there were very few bridges. So what was presented to me at the time in the Berkeley Career Center was, do you want to do good in the world and do not-for-profit stuff, or do you want to earn money and do well and go to banking and consulting or tech? And so these choices, maybe nobody said it that directly, but those are the choices that were offered. And what I always really craved was both. But I never saw that there was opportunities to have income and impact. And so I always felt like I was making a binary choice. And I tried the different sides out. At first, I really wanted to do good in the world, but I couldn't find opportunities that met my ambition. So I ended up in tech and started climbing the ladder and really loved all the skill development I had and even the people around me. But I was missing the heart center and something that I really cared about. And so I would volunteer on the side to be able to fit that in. And later, I married somebody from Mexico City, and we were raising our young children there. And I've lived half my life in emerging markets. So I then got really involved on the impact side for different organizations. That was mostly project-based work because I was very overwhelmed with young children. But what I noticed there is that I had no compensation or very low compensation for the work that I was doing. And I felt that that was not sustainable either. So what interests me is, especially as we think about, how do we look after our planet, look after humanity. How do we do that? And if we have used business as a force for good, how do we get the most ambitious people to feel aligned so that they can have not only the impact that they want, but the income to provide a lifestyle that is something they desire? And so I think that has been my focus for this book and interest in what are the opportunities. I just started really curious with the question of how do we do this? And surprisingly, it wasn't so hard to meet the people. Like I didn't have to like it wasn't a needle in the haystack. There were a lot of people who are these amazing role models that can show pathways to younger people. But I just didn't I didn't have access to it. I didn't see them, and I talk to young people on campuses today, and they still feel like they're given this binary choice. And so they don't see these options either.
Wow. I think it's your timing of when you're releasing the book, the climate that we're in right now. I mean, I hate to put it as climate, but I'm thinking more, either
Yeah.
politically, but also we're reaching kind of a point where this is what should be the focus for young people and finding out how we can have them make income by helping the earth. This is
Yeah.
that your timing is absolutely amazing. The other part of this is the fact that you said that it should be heart centered. I understand that fully. I was in corporate America, and unfortunately, it wasn't anywhere near my 30s, but when I finally retired, that's when I took a job or I created this career, became a coach, and it's completely heart-centered. And that's when my purpose and passion actually had an impact
Yeah.
as
Yeah,
a
you get
person.
to have a calling. Well, I mean, one thing that I will say is that there's a mindset difference that I discovered early on in writing this book, where it's you have to save the planet or you get to save the planet. And I had talked to one of the first employees at Patagonia and interviewed him for the book, and he shared this wisdom with me: is you get to take the responsibility on. You don't have to do it. No, because that's not going to ever get the best out of you. That you're never going to feel that you are happy with the work you're doing, or fulfilled with the work, or proud of the work if you have to do it. But you get to do it. And what was so interesting for me in writing the book is I wasn't looking for ways people could self-sacrifice to do this great work for our planet. I was looking for people to feel the spark and the value that it gives to their life beyond just self-sacrificing. So these are actually the most fulfilled people I've ever met. And I just, it's interesting because I talk to a lot of these different people in all different careers, all different, all around the globe. And they say things like, I would do this work for free. I feel proud of what I do. I feel proud to tell my kids what I do. Um, my work is so challenging, it's invigorating, and I can't stop. And I don't need a difference between who I am at home and who I am at work. It's all the same person. And so these people, this is not a I'll do the right thing and I'll go and make this choice. It's actually, this is where the gold lies. And I am excited to be able to show people these examples of who are doing this. And I call them disruptors for good.
Oh my gosh. I kept thinking there are obviously things that I've been trained on, neurolinguistic programming, all kinds of things. And I do this being profile, but everything is about talking to successful people and modeling their behavior. What you've done is you've talked to people that are successful in working in a career that has a positive impact on the world and modeling their behavior and writing about it. How did they get there? What did they do? How much, I mean, even down to perhaps, what income do they make from it? And then modeling that by writing the book and then sharing that information with the world, especially 25 to 35 year olds. You are modeling the successful people in that realm with your book.
Yeah, and I guess what comes to mind as you say that is the definition of success is different for different people. And one of the interesting pieces of writing this book was not becoming the police for what is work that's worth it. And so I really made a strong effort to for the individual to hold that responsibility. Nobody else can tell you if your work is worth it, if it's good for the world, if it's good for you. You are the person to hold that responsibility to decide. And so I think that's really important because sometimes, especially young people, will say, that they want a particular, let's say they want to go into banking because of the opportunities it might open up. That might be our most valuable person down the road that's had this rigorous training. So it's not, this is not a purity test. This is a way for you to make work that's worth it for you. And what I really encourage young people to do, especially because they're starting their career, is think about, so the average career is 90,000 hours. That's a huge amount of time. That's not my number. That I read it in an article from Harvard Business Review. And nobody told me about the sort of totality of my career when I started. But when you start, you are rich in hours. You have 90,000 of them ahead of you. And if that feels daunting, that's probably your first indication that maybe something needs to shift. Like, what if it felt exciting? And so you get to spend those hours. And the way that I encourage young people to think about is what is the contribution you want to make, and what's the thread that will carry through all those different jobs that you do. And if that feels like I have no idea, it's because we're not asking the right questions in school. And especially adults around young people say, what are you going to major in? What are you going to do? Who are you going to be? But nobody asks, what do you care about? What do you want to change in the world? What makes you feel most alive? And those are questions that actually bring in much more passion to find something that you want to see different. And I will say what we do in one of the chapters of the book is we create a personal mission. And just like a company can have a mission, you don't just necessarily find a mission. You've got to go build it. And it can start with one word, even if you're just at the beginning and say, I see Jane Goodall has like such a clear mission, but how do I do that? And I'm not Jane Goodall. What if you just picked one word that was the thread? And then as you develop your career, that word becomes like a whole mission statement. So the word could be woman. And that one word is like wherever you are in whatever workplace, how do you make that word woman a priority so you're contributing positively into that? And that's easy to do. You can do that wherever you are.
I love that because obviously this is Ladies Who Leap. There are older women listening to us, and it's really important to know what are the best questions to ask your young people, people that are the young ones that are going into college or just out or still in their 20s, like you said, 25 to 35, and struggling with realizing what it is that they want to do with their life. What are some other questions that you could have parents ask their children that really prompts looking at their really having them think about their values and what they want.
Yeah. I mean, so I have 7 pillars in the book, and each one comes with a question. But to start, we've just talked about contribution. But even before that, I would go to what are your gifts? And when we think of, I call it your capabilities, but when we think of that, it's usually what are your strengths? What are your skills? Especially skills. Like a resume is filled with skills, but you bring so much more. Your capabilities are so much more than just that. And you had mentioned values. Values is definitely a piece of it, where understanding your unique value set, and if you can bring that as a point of relevance to your career, that enhances your capabilities. And same for perspective. So, what is the life you have lived, and what have you seen and experienced? And how can you use that in your career to contribute positively to the world? And you have a unique advantage in that. So, I think often we're told, leave your personal life behind, show up at the office professionally, don't. But there's one thing coming in and not being able to do your job. And there's another thing saying, I know those people. I know how that feels. I know that experience. And you add so much value because you have lived it and you've experienced it. So I don't believe we should separate it from it. And just a caveat on that, just because you've lived an experience doesn't mean you want to work in that experience. This is part of what you would have to peel back and figure it out. So, like, I'll give you an example is I have had mold issues in my life, and I've had to work quite hard at it, and I know a lot about it, but I don't want to work in it because I find I've had enough mold in my life. So it doesn't mean just because you've experienced it that you're going to want to spend your hours there. But these are questions that you can figure out and ask yourself so that you can decide where you do want to spend your time.
I love just thinking about making it a priority to be comfortable with your own unique values. I do stress that with clients, and when I'm talking about values, it is when you know what your values are, whether it's directed to your personal life, relationships, or career in this case, then you can make decisions based on what those values are. So they are really important to know. And I don't know if really, I mean, I would have loved this also to be taught in school, to actually sit down and think about what your values are in life. And they can be influenced by what happened to you in your childhood and experiences that you had, and it may be driving you in some way. However, you're right. You don't have to, just because you have an experience with mold, you don't have to get into that industry. Um, but the values that came from that, wanting to make the world better, wanting to make homes safer, could be what you end up getting into,
Yeah.
right? As your
Yeah.
unique value. Yeah.
And I think also, Lisa, you're going to be living by your values whether you are conscious of them or not, because that's when you feel like I'm really misaligned, or my boss has asked me to do something that I don't feel comfortable with, or my family expects me to do something and show up a certain way that doesn't feel right, so I don't want to come home. And you're living your values regardless. But what's so helpful when you can actually put them on paper and start to become aware of them is when you feel um, not aligned in a certain situation, you can actually point to the value and be like, I get it. I know why this doesn't work for me. And you can make a decision if this is something that's like a short-term experience or a long-term experience. That if it's something long-term, you're going to need to make a switch. If it's a short-term, of course, we can get over it. But I like to think of in your work or even in your family, like what's ideal for work is that your values are aligned. Doesn't mean they're exactly the same, but your core values are aligned with the people you're around, but your perspectives are different. That's the richest workplace. And so that is where you're able to see so much more, but the decisions are coming from a place of commonality.
Hmm. I love that. I have something that I do, and I normally don't interject in that way, but if you want to tune into your unconscious mind to get your values, you close your eyes and say, what is important to me about career? And let the words, it just put on a recording so you can just spew out the words and do that. Open your eyes again, look around, kind of as we call break the state, and then do it two more times. And that should be information as you really focus that comes out of your unconscious mind for your values. So it's just a little exercise that I've learned through the NLP work. So you've traveled, so there's so many things I want to ask you, I have to admit. I'd love to ask how you ended up actually branching out to do this work. I
Yeah.
know that you've traveled the world. I mean, has that had an impact on it? I would just,
Yeah.
you
I
took a
think,
leap, right? A leap of faith
yes.
yourself. So how did that all happen?
Yeah. I took a big leap, and what I so in during COVID, right before COVID, actually, I had signed up to become certified in coaching, and that was a leap in itself. But that what it did for me is it opened up so many opportunities of self-reflection. Like I was going to say, it sort of closed the loop on questions I had, but it opened up so many opportunities for me because like you said, we don't get taught a lot of the stuff in school. And I just thought, what, this is so helpful. Why are we not being taught to better understand yourself, understand what your vision is? What do you really want for yourself? And so the leap of faith for me was writing the book. And I don't know how to say it in any less woo-woo way, but I got a download for the book And it's almost like you received the knock and it said, "I'm here." And it was so obvious that this was something that I could do. I could say yes to. It was an ask, let's say, of the universe, and I got the option to say yes, but I felt very equipped to say yes. And doesn't mean I had all the answers or experience, but I understood the question. And I'm a really curious person. That is one of my values. And so I understood that I could be on a quest to answer this question. And that was the leap of faith I took. And when I first got back, I was actually traveling at the time. So when I first got back, I had a coach and I was telling her that I was going to write a book. And in my first view of the book, it was a coffee table book highlighting the stories of all these incredible people doing amazing work. And she said to me, "You've got so many stories and insights. What if you're in the book?" And I thought, no, 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 I'd like to hide behind everybody else. I think I would prefer like their wonderful stories and me just be the curator. And she pushed again and said, think about it. Like everything that I know about you, you've experienced so many interesting things and would be valuable to share it. Um, and I then actually went on a weekend with a friend to stay with her, and she had two books that were iconic for me at the time. And one was a coffee table book called Vital Voices, and it's a beautiful book highlighting all these incredible women, paint like I think they're paintings and tells you about them. And and then she had another book by Arthur Brooks called From Strength to Strength, which is like a book similar in style to what I've written. It's a very easy read, but it's Strength to Strength is geared towards like as you're sort of aging out of your day-to-day job and where do you go next to use your wisdom. And the Strength to Strength was by her bed from the library, and it was really worn, like everybody had read it. And the other one was still in saran wrap. And that was for me like the ultimate, like Georgie still in saran wrap. And I looked at that and I thought, okay, this is the leap. I will take it. However, I'm going to take one step at a time and I'm going to require, I don't know if it's the universe or whatever, to show me the next step and give me the confidence to take the next step each step I take. That's what my ask is. Like I will take that first step, but then meet me, and then I'll take the next step and then meet me, and that's what happened. And so now I I have a book, and I'm not going to say it was easy. I actually wrote two drafts of this book. The first draft I gave to test readers, and some of the feedback was, I'm not totally sure who the book is for and what you're trying to tell them. And that felt really important to me. And that's when I honed in very specifically on a particular target reader because I thought that was fundamental. And it took me another year to rewrite, use the material that I had written, but get it in the format for this one particular reader. And obviously, it's always more broad than that. There's lots of that one person, but you really need to know who your reader is and be able to describe somebody that other people can relate to and know who you're writing for.
Wow, that's a great piece of advice. I just started myself a book and I knew I wanted to write a book, but just like you said, I waited for that download. And one day, actually, I was going through a session with someone on my own being profile, and she said something, and I thought, oh, that's the title of my book. And then I thought, oh, that's the direction of my book. Yeah, it just
Yeah.
happened. And from then on, I was like, okay, now I know what I'm writing about. But I'm going to take your advice and really having and looking at that person. Who is that person that book is meant for? And of course, it's other people are going to be interested in it and gain benefit from it. But knowing exactly who you're talking to and being that clear is really important.
Yeah, it helps you. I mean, I had a million words that we got down to 60,000. So I mean, I am a first-time writer. I will say part of taking the leap is I am a lover of being a beginner. I'm happy to be a beginner. And so that is an important step to take a leap. Not everyone's going to like being a beginner, but you're going to have to when you take a leap. And so I also think of writing, if any of your listeners are interested in the process, but find something that you're willing to talk about for 10 years. So it's not something that you're not going to write a book quickly and then put it out there and it's all going to work. It's going to be something that you're going to have to hustle behind for 10 years at least. And so find a topic that every time someone says, "What are you writing on?" that you feel energized and excited to tell them. And if that's not the case, it's going to be too much work.
Yeah. You need to, and as you were talking, I always thought the universe, you know your why, and the universe will give you your how. And you're right, making, oh, great advice, great advice. So when did you actually, because I know you probably were taking baby steps just by starting to write the book, but you were still working full time, working in
No, yeah, I mean, I was at this time, I do some work for a family business, so that is something that is very flexible, and I have the time to move hours, and I was doing that, and I was on some boards and also involved in a venture capital fund, but as an advisory role. So I had time for the main project, and my kids had gotten a little bit older, and so I was needed less on the day to day. I mean, obviously day to day, yes, but I finally felt like time for me was emerging. And maybe not, maybe I didn't give it quite long enough in between, but I was really excited to explore my own thoughts and interests. And I think what we do in this world right now is we are junkies. We are consuming information at like all day long. And not necessarily information we're even choosing or seeking out. So, but we do very little with that information. And I think I was just curious about this moment in time, what I can contribute of all the information that I have been able to take in and learn. What is my offering on that to the world? And so I think it's whether, I even thought of as I read books now, I actually should not read a book that I'm not willing to write a review on and be able to have a reflection on because we're just taking in way too much. It's hard. It's hard to it almost becomes like an addiction to just keep going and not process it and think about it.
Yeah, and that's why I love books that actually say for each chapter, digest it. Here's a little exercise, write about it, think about it, then go to the next chapter or something along those lines. I really enjoy that when I have, especially with obviously with self-help books. When I'm
Yeah.
reading for enjoyment, I love autobiographies and things. It's a little bit different. But really, really listening, I hate to use the word listening, you're reading, but listening to what it is that you're reading and really take it in and understand it because there is so many great writers in this world as AI starts to take over. We really have a lot of great writers and a lot of people who are living great lives, which leads me to when I was looking at your website, you have met some amazing people. I'm assuming it's been part of the research for your book, but you've met some amazing people in this world, and I'd love you to just comment on any one or two of those experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the two people that I have on my website was actually before partaking in this actual book writing, but the most, uh, well, two people that I really admire, like my role models, would be Jane Goodall and Nelson Mandela. I'm South African, and so those are two people that I really look to as examples of doing work or having done work in the world with great significance, but not self-sacrifice because it was so rewarding for them to be doing the work. So it may still feel like it's self-sacrifice, but I don't believe it because otherwise they wouldn't be able to have kept going for so long. Jane Goodall, I got to meet at a conference in San Francisco, and I particularly love her conversations on hope. And having lived in emerging markets for very long, like something about humanity, which is unique, is our ability to hope. And it almost feels like an entrepreneur without all the information, or because so, or even someone who's going to write a book. It's like you say, if I knew what it was going to take, I might not have done it. But hope is almost a distortion of reality, but it's that little possibility that something might happen that keeps you showing up. And I think I really appreciate that Jane Goodall talks a lot about hope because especially the work that she does can feel quite hopeless. And so that is important. And then Nelson Mandela, I got to meet right after business school. And actually, the funny part about it is my sister and I were having a conversation with him, and my sister lives in London and I live here, and we both are South African born. And he said, was curious why we had left South Africa. And we asked at one point if we could take a photo with him, and he said, "Of course you can, but here's my condition." And he was quite a mischievous, he had a mischievous sense of humor. And he said, "You come back and marry South African men." And neither of us did. But I can say that I married a man from an emerging market, so maybe that was close enough. But yeah, that was his condition for taking a photo with him.
Oh my gosh, what interesting stories. So, yeah, who you married. One of the questions I like to ask is who is your support system? Where do you go
Yeah.
when you're having a bad day or you have a little self-doubt about the direction that you're going in? Who
Yeah.
is that for you?
Well, Lisa, that's such an important question, and I have a chapter on connection, and I think of connection in um, for your work life, but really for your whole life is in you have two buckets, and it's one is your safety net, and the other is your trampoline. And most people at work focus on trampoline relationships. So your boss or somebody will say to you, like, okay, let's figure out some mentors, some role models, and we have sort of a formal process to do that. But I haven't met a person who I would call a disruptor for good who doesn't have the safety net dialed in too. And that's because you're going to have to take some big risks and you're going to be a disruptor and you're going to be having to be a rebel and an activist and you're going to need support. But I think everybody needs support at the end of the day. But it's such an important piece about what you're able to achieve at work. And so the safety net is critical. And I completely relate that it's not as easy for people to build that safety net as they would like. For me, that is not one of my hard areas. I am good and really appreciate and enjoy connection and deep connection with others. So, and my safety net, like I've heard Brene Brown at times say, you just need one person. I have, a good amount of people in that safety net that I can be completely vulnerable to, real, and it includes my husband, but it includes best friends, it includes my kids, where I can be vulnerable and say, like, I need to be held. This is not working, or I need to be celebrated. I want you there, and the same to do for others. So, it's such an important part of being able to take the leap and follow your instincts of what you're here to contribute to the world. And so I really do appreciate that you ask the question and value it and ask your clients to do that work because it's really important. And it's not just what you're receiving, it's who you're giving the same thing to. Like, whose safety net are you in? Like, who are you there for to do that? And it's always reciprocal. Like, doesn't have to be one for one, but you you can't have people in your safety net if you're not somebody who's willing to give that to others either.
Yeah, to me, it's all about trust too. And it's building even the trust in yourself because some folks didn't have it as easy as you had with feeling comfortable allowing people to help them. And that comes over time also with working on yourself and understanding that it's okay for you not to have all the answers and being discernible about who you do let into your safety net or who you do value as someone that's a supportive person. You need to discern that because you don't want to share your vulnerabilities and have someone not take the direction of wanting to help you or wanting to celebrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some work there if you need it. I'm so glad, Georgia, you have a great support system, a great safety net, especially having a fantastic husband that's so supportive. That I love hearing those stories, and I have heard a lot of them. So it really gives, I think, hope to a lot of women that are thinking, am I going to find the right person? Are they out there? Yes, they are out there. There are
Yeah.
men that are very supportive of their women, and they are their safety net. And that's, I love the way you use that phrase.
Yeah, no, it definitely it's important. And I would say another aspect of either the safety net or the trampoline is you're going to have people with different perspectives. And I think often people are looking for mentors and those kinds of relationships. So if your audience is more mature and are often the mentors of others, one of the important things that I say to younger people is find a mentor that's willing to share their perspective and their lessons, but not require you to do it the way they did it, because you have to then internalize it and gather sources of information and say, I have this information, I'm going to sort through it and then decide what I think is best for me. And I think that's a more empowering relationship to say, I'd like to toss in my perspective, but ultimately, I give you the freedom to choose what is the right path for you and to hold that responsibility yourself.
That's great advice. And for young people, that's also great advice because they're valuing their uniqueness. They can gather up this information and learn from lessons, but they are a unique individual and their decisions are going to be based on their unique values and who they are as a person. So that's really fantastic advice. So I often ask this question, what cost do you feel would you have paid if you didn't make these changes in your life and pursue what you did?
I mean, for me, it's a great cost. And I think it comes down to like one word for me, and it's potential.
Mm.
And when you feel you have more potential than you are able, have time, energy, resources to deliver, it keeps you small.
Mm.
And I think for me, I knew I had I knew I had to explore this potential. I knew I had to explore the gifts that I've been given. And I wanted to push the boundaries on them. I wanted to go to my learning edge and really understand what I'm capable of. And I'm on a journey to do that. But my most important part of my life is family and being active and interested and caring as a mother. So that is never a piece that I want to go away or let go. But the time that that's taking is taking less. And so I have an opportunity to explore more of another aspect of what's important to me. And that's really sort of contributing to this larger picture of how do we get the kindest people with the biggest hearts into positions where they have influence and power. And for me, like in just tangible terms in business, it would be how do we get them into C-suites and boardrooms? And to do that, we need to be able to play bigger and to explore your potential. And so that's what's important to me. That's the cost to me, is not only my own, but it's anyone else who I can help get there.
And I'm thinking we didn't even talk about the whole idea of environmental work and things like that. So please, when she talks about her website, go there because she has really wanting to get young people involved in their environment and how to help this earth is one of your, I believe, core values, if it's okay for me to say that, because that's the impression that I received. And we are running out of time. Lastly, I always ask my guests to present their favorite quote, mantra, or positive affirmation. It can be more than one, and it's something that I love them to share, and it kind of sums everything up at the end of our discussion.
Okay, the quote that I would love to share with you is a quote from Margaret Renkel that appeared in the New York Times, and she actually spoke it at a graduation. And she says, if you remember only two things, the world is beautiful and people are good. And I believe, at the very least, there is beauty in the world and there's beauty in every human, but focusing and bringing it out, that beauty becomes part of our job. And when you do, that is contagious. So that is at my core, I guess, what keeps me having hope and excited to do the work that I do.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
So finally, how can people reach you to learn more? Obviously, we know, and I will put the name of the book here, Work That's Worth It, The Ambitious Professional's Guide for a High Impact, High Reward Career.
Yes. So if you want to go to workthat'sworthit.com, you can connect with me that way, or georgienthoven.com, and that is a little bit more complicated to spell, but I'm sure you'll have it in
I'm
your
going to
show
show it.
notes.
It's probably flashing right now underneath your
Yeah.
face.
And on Instagram at georgienthoven.com, and probably most active, but I'm also on LinkedIn and YouTube and so Facebook. So wherever you are active, I will be there. But Instagram is the platform that I spend more time on. And yeah, I would love to hear from your listeners and learn what's important to them and how they've made their work worth it.
And I would suggest getting this book and giving it to your college child before they start they're getting into the work that they're going to be doing before they make decisions in life. This is a great book to give as a graduation present, even. Fantastic idea for a book for a graduation present. I'm going to remember if there's anyone else. In fact, I'm going to tell a couple close friends, you need to talk to your children about this book and give it to them because I can see where younger women are floundering. And gosh, I really don't want them to go through life floating. I call it just floating through life. Having that purpose-driven career, having that purpose-driven focus is something that really makes your life fulfilling. So thank you for writing that book. I think it's going to have an impact, such a high impact to so
Oh,
many people in this world. Yeah.
yeah, thank you for the lovely conversation. I really enjoyed your questions, and they're all sparking some deep reflection.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please subscribe so that you know when there's going to be now. I've just started in April, 3 episodes a month. So 1st, 8th, and 15th. And you can tune in and just listen to the most amazing, inspiring women talking about how to inspire you to take that leap of faith. Have a wonderful afternoon and day. And thank you again, Georgie.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening or watching. Please subscribe to the Ladies Who Leap podcast to be notified of new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know what works, what doesn't, and if you have a story to tell, please reach out. Come join the Leap community at the Ladies Who Leap Club Facebook group. Remember, leaping out of your comfort zone is where the growth happens.